The HTTP protocol actually describes the protocols or the procedures or the guidelines for transferring hypertext documents, in short, HTML documents, over the internet. So how does it really work? Now that you know what the HTTP protocol is, but then how does it really work? So the HTTP work uses the client-server model. You know, you have a server, you have a client. In many cases, the client, you're talking about the browser, web browsers. Those are your clients. Okay, so they are requesting information from the server. So you have got the browser. So many of the standards, the procedures, the protocols are embedded within your web browser. The browser knows the procedures, the protocols that are to be followed. So it uses, they are embedded right within your client. So the client knows how to handle those protocols. You just follow some guidelines, some few clicks here and there of how you are to implement on your end, but the back of it is handled by the clients, the server on the other side and the web browser on the other side. So the client, which is the web browser, sends requests in the client server model that we're saying the HTTP uses. So the browser, which is the client, sends the request to the server, and in return the server sends back a response. Now, what exactly happens here? It can't just be like that. There should be something happening. How are the requests exactly sent? So normally you use HTTP verbs to send your requests to the server. There is GET, which is used for acquiring resources from the servers. There is POST when you are sending or you're trying to create resources on the servers. There is PUT when you are trying to update the resources on the servers. And there is DELETE when you're trying to remove the resources from the servers. So here we'll be using the GET as a way of demonstrating how exactly the HTTP works. Now, normally when you are sending requests to the server, you use web addresses. You use an address to where that resource is stored. If you are talking about Google, you will have to use the servers, you have to use the address for Google, which will be google.com. But how exactly is a web address structured? So here is a look at how the web address is structured. So normally it has what we call a protocol. So the protocol is either an HTTP, which is what we're talking about here. It has to specify what protocol is this request going to be using. Okay, so it's using the HTTP protocol. Now, to the protocol you attach normally a domain name or a server. Basically, the domain names pointing to a specific hardware. Normally these are hardware somewhere stationed somewhere else. So they are in the form of servers. So you point to the address of a server. So the address is normally in this format here. This one says 127.0.0.1. Those are that have experience in web development know what this is. This is a local host on your personal computer, right where you are. But if you want to send a request to a computer that is far away from you on the cloud, as they call it, the clouds, which we know normally are computers out there that we don't have within reach. So we normally use the word clouds. So you have to specify that. So I'm using here the google.com. So you'll be calling, you'll be specifying the servers for Google. Normally, you see this says 127.0.0.1. This is a domain name which is presented in the form of numeric value. Okay, this is a number value, but there is what we call the DNS. Okay, the DNS system will normally translate this digit or this number in a format that you can read and understand. In short, a human readable format. That's why you heard me repeatedly saying google.com, but it has got a numeric value under it. So the DNS system translates that into a human readable format. Next, on the web address, you normally specify, if you want a resource, you normally specify the port. Okay, so the port is shown in this format. Now, those that have got some experience in using Django know that this is where the port which comes pre-configured in a Django local development environment. Okay, in a local server. So this is the port that you normally get. But if you're using Flask, you normally get 5,000 colon 5,000. So this is how the port looks like. And then next, you need to specify the resource. Now you've got the protocol, you've got the domain name, which is a computer, where you want to access the resource itself. And then you have got the port for entering into the storage for your resources. And then you have to specify the resource. What resource are you looking for? Otherwise, you cannot request everything from the server. You need to specify it. So it's /post. Okay, it could either be posts or a post, or it could either be maybe a cart if you are looking for, if you are using an e-commerce site, or payments, stuff like that. So this whole thing forms what we call the web address. It has got these parts here, and this is how you normally use an HTTP request to get a resource from the servers. So the servers will normally send you back the resource in form of an HTTP response as well. Okay, so this is how the whole thing works. You send a GET request to the server, specifying your domain name, and then the server will send back the HTTP response. Wait a minute, but then how do you specify the type of resource that you would want to receive from the server? Okay, let's take a look at that. Normally, you use what we call headers. So when you're sending a request, normally you send a request header. In the request header, you specify the type of resource that you would want to get from the server. So in this case, I'm saying JSON, application JSON. It would be an XML. Okay. And then the server will also use some headers to identify or specify the resources. So when it sends back a response in its content, the content that you have requested, it will send it in form of JSON as you've requested. When sending a response to you, normally the server, once you get a resource, will have to send what we call a status code. If there is a resource on the servers, normally it will send a response status, a request status. If there is a resource, it will send a 200 OK. If there is no response, it will send a different request altogether. Okay, so you will also have to understand these as well. So that's it. This is how your HTTP request is structured. You normally send your request in form of say a GET to the web address, and then you specify the type of content using your headers. You can specify as JSON or XML, and then the server will send a response in form of a response headers as well, specify the header as either the type of content that is sending you back is either a JSON or an XML, with a status code of what the response or the resource is like. So whether if there is a resource, the requested resource, it will send you a 200, okay? If not, it will send a different response code altogether. That's about it, and this is what exactly the HTTP protocol is, and that's how it works. And here is the summary of the HTTP is actually a standard, okay, or a procedure. The HTTP protocol is actually a standard. We've learned that the HTTP protocol is used for transferring HTML documents over the internet. The HTTP uses the client-server model. The clients, normally in the client-server models, the client or the browsers normally send requests to the server, and the servers in this client-server model will normally return responses to our client requests. It normally uses request and response headers to specify the type of content that you are requesting and then the type of content that the response is giving in. That's almost about it. Thank you, gentlemen. Please hit a subscribe and a like. See you next. And I think next we'll be talking about how exactly the HTTP protocol fits in Django. We'll look at how Django uses the HTTP protocol to handle the request and implement the HTTP protocol within the framework itself. Thank you. See you next.